Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and welcome back to our Nightmare Lairs discussion in the Around the Hearth series. We will be discussing Dan's idea for... it's a political encounter, so we will have a finalized title, as usual. A fancy finalized title, something alliterative or something like that, which is what we usually do. Some kind of pun. There you go.
Punny.
But that'll be down below. You guys have already seen that because you've seen the title of the video that you clicked on. But before we start in, we want to do any kind of announcements or anything like that. Always less than 5 minutes. You can time me. I used to do that every single time we had a video. And I can especially say that now because I don't have anything specific to announce. I am going to try and do we're recording this a little before what is called Fallout Day in my calendar, which is October 23rd. So I'm going to try and put something out for that. So this may come out after that, most likely. But if it does, that is okay. I'll try and put something out for you guys that's kind of Fallout or post-apocalyptic themed. Okay. So that's my only announcement. Do you have anything, Dan?
Actually, the Friday, yesterday from when we're recording now, our new Open Legend Actual Play campaign released their intro episode. So it's Jacob's Laboratory, and it's a sci-fi-ish Open Legend campaign. So we now have 2 long-form campaigns running. Really excited about that. So check that out.
Cool beans.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see. Levi, you're the spotlight guy. Do you got anything to spotlight today?
Well, it's something that used to get spotlit on the channel a lot more if he'd actually be around more. But Black Dragon Gaming?
Hey.
Cool dude. Makes cool videos mostly on Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the World of Galarian.
Yeah.
Fun times.
There you go. Look at us spotlighting out this guy who's already made it and everything. So,
yeah, but we still like him, so...
He's alright, I guess.
Oh, that's a good call. Good call.
Okie dokie. So there's our spotlight for this time. So, everyone, sit down around the fire. Warm your feet by it and sip your preferred beverage as we talk about our ideas, especially Dan's, on a political forum encounter.
All right. Nailed it. That was so good. Yeah, so I have this idea. I have not gotten to play test it at all. I was telling Adam before. So I'm interested to see how it goes, but it's kind of niche. The idea is to utilize more combat mechanics in a political forum or debate, more verbal sparring type of thing. A way to engage other skills and character builds to have a combat-esque use without losing the role-playing. That's kind of the goal I had. Specifically in Bomb Squad, I don't know if they'll get to it now because of player choices, but we'll see. There was a political forum coming up where they're supposed to pick the new leader for the faith, and I knew the characters were going to be there, and I thought, wow, it'd be cool to have it not just do a challenge event, but do something a little more that feels like combat, but covers a larger use of time. And as I was typing it out, I thought, this could work for debates, speeches, trials and stuff. I thought it actually could work really well if you have like a 2-hour one shot and you want to do like a Law and Order style thing where you're investigating, but do it fast, cover a lot of time, but still have some nice RP moments in there. So the mechanics idea, I have it specific for Open Legend, so I'll give you guys those thoughts. And then my question also to you, not only your thoughts on it in general, but could this work in other systems? I think it works well for something like Cogent or Open Legend, and probably for Savage Worlds, something like that. So I'm not sure about D&D and Pathfinder, because I'd hate to have too much homebrew to make this work.
When we get there, I will give a statement relating to this that may surprise you based on your tone.
Sweet. So yeah, let's see. I'm just looking at my notes. So the mechanic idea is that you are doing combat, there's rounds, and everyone takes a turn. It's not throwing away the 6-second idea. This could cover any swath of time as it makes sense for the narrative. And most of the time I was picturing you'd have a lead character, like it's the lawyer or the person giving the speech or the person in the debate. And then the rest of the party is running support. So on their turns, they're doing things. And I really wanted them to be able to look creatively at their attributes and skills to figure out ways that they're helping within the narrative. And then my basic idea is that in Open Legend, you're using your resolve defense. That's what the attacks are against. And then the HP is how you determine victory. The HP of the characters then represents how well they're doing in the debate or the sway of the crowd or something like that. And then the same thing could be done if it's like investigating criminals. You could just make a monster that's the criminal organization with a defense score and an HP to determine the victory. Let's see. Yeah. Ways. So a lot of thinking outside the box on how you're going to use your skills, how for Open Legend specifically, the Banes and Boons could be utilized because healing the HP, flavoring it in a way that's helping whoever is the front runner for this, in encouraging them through presence or something like that. But other ideas of like finding something, finding a clue that helps, solve the case or put a nail in the defense case or the prosecution case. And you could also do, the great thing I love about Open Legend is that you can create items that have this too. And the items could be verbal or written agreements, evidence, crowd swaying tactics. These could be special items they could use, all to create this way to do something that would take a large amount of time if you played it out, but be able to do it in a combat kind of feel.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's basically that's my idea. Again, I haven't play tested it, so I don't know how
for
it
sure.
will play out.
A little thing I think would be nice to add. Oh, it's been a bit since I've actually had a chance to play Open Legend, so the terminology is not as strong in my head as it once was. But
No
there's
worries.
the equivalent of like a fortitude-ish score, where it's like your constitution and
Yep, fortitude.
one other thing.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's the sort of thing you could do to like survive a filibuster, or there's also like with this, you could also like being on one side of an interrogation could also be a similar thing that has some of this sort of aspect. So certain aspects of attacks could be against that score. Just because I think using more than one defense also kind of helps other style of characters still like increase their relevance.
Yes,
like,
no, that's fair.
Although totally for sure, unless like it changes from social combat to death combat, don't
Right.
use the AC equivalent. Guard. That is the correct word in this.
Yes.
Let's
Right,
see.
My idea was to kind of, a lot of times resolve is forgotten, and even toughness sometimes they're less commonly used. So
Right.
it's definitely that
Oh
idea
yeah,
of trying to
resolve
pull in
is like
those things.
guard.
Right.
Resolve is like you're first and foremost. This is social things. You've got to be like in the moment and emotionally able to deal with whatever they do, so you can come back at this. This is the sort of thing that gives like a lot more prevalence to like logic versus knowledge than usual.
Yeah.
Because out in your average adventuring day, they come to pretty similar, like, hey, do you know a thing? Whereas I feel like in these social situations, the nuance between the two is much more relevant.
Yeah.
And brings up important points for it. Let's see.
Well, I could see where if you were taking this to another system, that if you're if you are in Open Legend, then you have the attributes. You got 18 attributes, a lot of which are supernatural, and you don't necessarily even want to use those supernatural ones, because that could be construed as swaying a witness or influencing the minds of someone around you. So those supernatural ones, or those type of ones that lend to boons and banes through that, you want to avoid those, and this gives a place for those people that invested in other portions of their skills that derive from attributes based around actual mental portions, or even other places, even their physical scores or different things like that, with the way that the boons work, gives them access to them. So those can be useful, because I would think that any type of society that had magic and knew magic existed, or extraordinary, what we call extraordinary things in Open Legend, or magic in D&D and Pathfinder, that would not be allowed in the court of law, aside from like Zone of Truth or something like that, from a reputable cleric, not somebody they just find off the street.
Maybe even specifically the judge.
Yeah. So the judge is a cleric that has access to either an item or the actual spell, Zone of Truth. And they may even use a specific gavel that's just like, boom. And when the gavel hits, the room is, not necessarily the room, but a certain area around is impacted with Zone of Truth. Or something.
Oh, that like call to order, like...
Yeah. Order in the court. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom. I like that idea too, that the support players, the people who aren't directly in the discussions too, could be trying to find ways to work around those rules without getting caught. And that can get... You got the success with twist and failure.
Yeah, I mean, players never do that. They never try to cheat the system. No.
Never.
Okay, but, like, sneaky magic in the background is, like, a very good drama vibe. Right? And the one thing I especially like that is because, in a sense with this, only the upfront character is the one really having their resolve hit.
Right.
So, like, it's an interesting combat where only one person is in that kind of danger at a time. So making sure that all of the other players are in a different style of danger helps keep the tension up for them.
Well, if you think about it, it'd be really interesting. Like you said, you've got those people up front, but the drama that you kick into is that someone else on the other side, maybe the rogue or somebody in the party, picks up on their hand gestures, and they're just using somatic components, non-verbal components. And they're like in D&D or Pathfinder, those are restrictive elements to your spells. So they're purposefully not using verbal spells. And there are classes that can substitute back and forth different somatic and verbal components and such like that.
Okay.
And so they have to... The party now knows that there is someone on the other side of their argument. They could be the prosecution or defense. And they are in the courtroom influencing, perceivably, to their point of view, influencing someone. They may not even not know who the spell is directed against, but they're influencing someone in the courtroom. So they either have to decide to try and intervene. Do they expose this person? What if this person is not influencing anybody in the courtroom at all? What happens if the accusation is made and it's just your word against their word, and then you get kicked out of the courtroom, and then you can't be there to support him, whoever is on trial anyway, or whoever is acting as the lawyer in the trial, or the representative. And so you have this nice tension that you can involve the rest of the party with, given the right circumstances.
And I like, too, what Levi pointing out, if with the attacks kind of being focused on one person, not only is it a risk to them, but it's not like they're going to die. It's the case will be lost. So it's actually, if that player goes down, the whole team loses. So everyone's really encouraged to work together and make those difficult choices.
Yep.
So I had an interesting, like, while we were discussing this, like, you know how there will be stories where there's, like, the court cases. Okay, I'm not sure how often this is actually a thing or if I imagined it and, like, the idea. Let's be honest. So I'm imagining you've got the court case going on. They, like, make their opening statements, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you flash over to the other side of the people who are gaining the evidence.
Yes. That was the Law
Right.
and Order thing I thought of. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, cool. That's actually from that and not just me imagining it. Okay. I have a decently strong
agree
imagination.
Again. How much of it is real in TV, I don't know.
Well, it gets really bad when you end up watching a show and then your imagination takes those characters away from the show and starts doing its own thing with them, and then you're still watching the show, and so you've got two shows going on in your head, and then you're like, wait, which thing actually happened in the movie?
Yeah. So, okay, the core thing is that you are, like, bouncing back and forth, and the actions that they take that are asynchronous with what's going on do turn into things that directly in the time of the court affect it. Like, they're like, oh, we went and we grabbed this. So then in the next scene, the lawyer, like, opens their briefcase and that piece of evidence is in it. Or
no, I really like that. Yeah.
So, like, it reveals, like, they're in a court case, but they are also having the mystery revealed to them as they fight it.
Right. That would be cool transition too, because it's like, well, we got this piece of evidence, right, guys? All right, we're gonna flash over to the other half of the party. Let's find out.
Well, this is a good way to do any kind of political, or especially a trial. Like if you wanted to do a Perry Mason style flash, Perry Mason, Matlock, whichever, pick your flavor of TV lawyer. Jag, I don't care. What's really weird is that people are more likely to know Matlock and Perry Mason than they are Jag.
I've never heard of Jag, but I've seen Matlock.
See?
I don't know who Perry Mason is, though.
Okay, type in the comments if you know what Jag is. And type in the comments if you didn't know what Jag is. And so we'll know.
It sounds like a quick shortening for jet lag.
Well, I mean, you're closer than you think.
Yeah.
But
like, I'm just going off the words. It's like, man, I'm really, like, jagged today. Like, I just flew 12 hours. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Tangent over, but...
Sorry.
You guys, in the comments, I'm serious. I want to know who knows what Jag is and who doesn't. But everybody's going to know what Matlock or, Perry Mason is. So, the idea is, if you want to have a trial-based game... Like, that's the type of game you want, whether it's a one-shot or even a multi-shot. You could do this for a few and keep it fresh. Or have a fresh case each time you play. That could be really interesting for, like, once a month or, even if you're building into it.
Right.
You have your lawyer character. You have your police investigator. You have your forensic scientist. Everybody gets to play a part in the chain. And so they
informant.
Like criminal informant, information gatherer, because that's somebody the private investigator that works with
this feels
the police.
like a Powered by the Apocalypse game.
See, so there you go. Another system you could use.
Yeah.
But everybody plays a role in the chain, in the justice chain, so that by the time it gets to the trial, by the time you're playing the game, you've got your turns are actually what's happening through the investigation. So it starts out, like you said, with opening arguments. Those are the people who start off the initiative. And then, based upon which, this would be actually really good for Fiasco also. So you could do those narrative-heavy games like that and still involve the combat elements of dice rolling and such. So you have your opening arguments, and then you do a roll-off to see which people go next to do their little segment, their turn. And you would have to kind of limit how much time people had. You'd have to focus it in like a TV show does on the important parts of the investigation.
Right.
But you as the GM could have a piece of evidence for each person's turn. And so by the time it came back around after those portions, you had one section of evidence ready for the next person. And maybe that forensic scientist needs one turn to prepare this, and then another turn with rolls to interpret the data.
Yeah. / they need allies to gather them other things for their clues.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I really like that. And the idea too is it's like you could do this as a challenge event, but my hope is that by kind of focusing in this way, you get that combat feel where you're targeting, some kind of AC, yada yada.
I almost imagine that, like, in a sense, you could have, like, so let's take our forensic scientist, right? They're trying to do that. And then there's an attack versus their toughness that is all of their machines being on the fritz, or... You know what I mean? Like, you could still have this kind of, like, external, like, your job is fighting you vibe if you wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so, like,
no, I like that a lot.
And if you had a character that liked to play the more battle type of person, but it didn't fit with this particular game, you could still give them that satisfaction, especially when you consider that there still has to be an arrest of the suspect. Right. So in the opening arguments, the defendant or whoever's being prosecuted is not there yet. They're in transit. And so when it comes to the person's turn, who is, say, the arresting officer, who's playing the police in this particular session, their roles end up saying whether they were whether they were apprehended and arrested, or whether they were killed during the arrest.
Or if they escaped.
And so it'd be hard to have a trial if they escaped because of the implications.
That's true, but there could be more than just the main person. There could be accomplices and whatnot who could escape.
Right. Or is it a witness that gets kidnapped en route? So then you come back to the lawyers and they have to, like, argue for a recess or something. Like, we got to figure out what's happening. I don't know. I like the idea that it's building tension based on the different groups making decisions.
Yep. So one of your witnesses has to get brought in, but now the police can't go and get that witness, but they know where the witness is, but the private investigator doesn't. So those two characters could work together to then go and do that, but the police officer has to make sure that he doesn't step over his boundaries. So you have this inner dynamic of the two characters.
You get a little mini buddy cop film.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I like this idea on using this entire setup in that, because, like we said, these political debates and trials and stuff like that are inherently turn-based. We've had turn-based trials for, I guess, ever since we've been putting things out there and discussing them. Because
since a trial in any sense that it could be reasonably considered fair, it has been turn-based.
Yeah.
Which is part of why combat's turn-based.
Yeah, it is a trial by combat. So, there you go. Hey.
But it's like, so you can design it and balance it and make it approximate fairness.
Right. And it can be an entire non-combat encounter session, if that's how it all falls out. Or if, because these are kind of different, the Nightmare Layers is about all different types of things, and this type of encounter can be a nightmare for your characters to deal with if their roles aren't particularly good, or if they don't make a particularly good argument for the judge.
I really like the idea of this being implemented in a D&D-esque world as a, like, boring the murder hobo, because they are on trial. And the rest of the party has to try and, like, lighten their sentence or get them off or
That's
whatever.
Cool. Yeah, he's just sitting there, he's like, and everybody else is going to look at him and be like, well, you're who got us into this.
Well, and even if they get to be an active participant, they don't get to be violent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, I mean, if
no, I just mean that they will be, like, potentially executed on the spot if they're violent, so if they're not dumb.
Yeah. It makes it interesting, too, because if the murder hobo is on trial, that means he's going to be making rolls to influence the way that the judge thinks about him.
Mhm.
Right?
Because the judge...
Resolve when he's being grilled by other people.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when they're... Because murder hoboing is not just a man's game.
Yeah. So, it's an interesting quandary to find yourself in. And a different thing to add dynamics to is you would have to consider what type of law system you're using in your setting, and whether they have jury trials or not.
Right.
Because traditionally, at least the way it works in America, so you international viewers, which there's not a lot of you, but if you're there, you can let me know if it's the same in your country or not in the comments. But in America, technically, if you go by the laws on the books and the technical power of the jury, it matters what they think, not what the law says. The jury decides whether someone should be punished or not. The judge does not. If it's a jury trial, the judge is there to arbitrate the trial, not to make a final judgment on whether someone's guilty or innocent. And that's how jury works. And there's a huge amount of power in the jury in America. Now, most juries get intimidated by having to deal with the judge because he says, I'll put you in contempt if you don't do X, Y, or Z. Legally, that's just a threat. But
/ it's hard to prove, but also jury member is a party role. Let's go.
Oh.
I like it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That could be part of the build-up or a flashback thing,
It's like installing yourself in the jury.
Yeah.
Did somebody did we get a plant in the jury?
Yeah.
Or, when you're doing the jury trials, they actually interview jurors, so that whole interviewing portion could be done, and it could be a combined role between the lawyer, and this doesn't have to come up right away. It can be a combined role between the lawyer and whoever they want to put in the jury. So
you get super dark with it that they got an earpiece in, and I can't remember some TV shows that do that where they're like, trying to rig it up, and there's people working in the background looking up stuff on different jury members, and it's a lot of ways you can take it. And I like too with the jury and the judge too. The jury is the boss, thinking from a combat set. You could give that the jury has its own defense and HP for can you convince or not. And then the judge is like kind of one of the minions, because if you can get him liking you so he's more lenient to your side and more strict to the other. Yeah. Because
so the jury decides whether you're guilty or not.
Right.
The judge decides what's the punishment is. So, and the jury can only recommend, what the punishment, the intensity of the punishment. The judge actually decides on how hard to throw the book at you. So if you get the jury to say you're guilty, but the judge likes the persona that you've put on, he could be more lenient, but the jury could be not liking you much at all. Or liking whoever you're defending, or so on.
You can turn something pretty crazy into a slap on the wrist if you really get the judge on your side.
Yeah. Getting a little close to reality with that one.
I know, it's a problem with talking about court cases because they're real, where dragons aren't.
Oh, just Dresden Files it or something.
But I should say that this is a very interesting, but this feels like it would take a lot of work to properly pull off. So I do hope you get to play test this, because it feels like it's going to want some play testing.
Yep.
Yeah.
It sounds really cool when it's ready.
Right. Yeah, definitely for what we're talking about. My hope is something like the original thing I had was the political forum, which is just one moment of people talking to a crowd, more of that classic British setup in the old days when they're all banging their canes and so, you're trying to sway the crowd.
Parliament,
so it's like,
House of Representatives, the Whigs.
So my hope is that you could also just make it there could be a quick combat where it's like the deciding factor has their HP and stuff, and there's different people trying to, or it would probably be the opposing faction makes the most sense. And then you have the other players in the crowd trying to sway the crowd or the other things.
But yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Much more limited scope than an entire like campaign based off of a series of interesting one shots.
Right. I like both though.
No, it sounds really cool. Okay, so on the note of you asking about other systems, I do know for a fact that Pathfinder First Edition in, I believe it was Ultimate Intrigue, has social combat rules. So like,
not surprised.
They have new actions, they have feats for it. Like,
yeah, okay, that's cool.
They have, like, this is definitely a thing that they have done. And actually, for looking into it for Open Legend, it might be worth, like, going on Archives of Nethys and reading through the social combat rules to see if there's any inspiration. Don't take too much. Pathfinder is a much more specific and intricate system.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a fancy way of saying it's got a lot of bloat. But it's good. It's bloat we like to see sometimes. Sometimes you like your systems thick. So, I mean...
I do. I like my systems thick and crunchy. Like those big round pretzels.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. As long as I know what I'm getting into going in. When someone surprises me with AD&D bonus rules and I'm playing 5th edition...
Yeah.
I don't want to roll.
Your brain was in a different spot.
Well, I mean, to be fair, AD&D and even first and second edition get a lot of flack. But if you go look back, they're actually closer to narrative games than they are rules crunchy games. It wasn't until third edition that it started to get really crunchy. So
yeah, at least I played second edition, had some fun.
Yeah, at least the way that Gygax played it. And I mean, if you're going to use Gygax as an example and play his system, which those two systems were his. First and second, you may as well take some inspiration from that.
Oh yeah, I mean, let's be honest, we'll play anything.
That's not too far from the truth.
Yeah, I'll play Mouse Guardian and I'll have a blast.
And Pathfinder 2nd has their generic victory point system, so they don't do it as combat, but they definitely have a much more intricate than just a skill challenge. So it's another place to look for some inspiration. Really, I'm trying to think. That Pathfinder social combat is the only one I know of off the top of my head that is like super directly what you're looking to try to do.
Definitely be good to check out.
Yeah.
Hey, and comment below if you've done something like this too. I'd love to hear other people's stories.
Yeah.
That's the best. That's the best way to learn.
All right. So we are about 34 minutes in. So how's about, since we try to keep these kind of 20 to 30 minutes, how's about last remarks then? So.
Have fun. Try this out and let us know how it goes, because I don't know. It sounds pretty cool. But yeah, I'm really interested to see, and hopefully you'll see it on Bomb Squad too. I honestly don't know. We'll, players will do what they will, and
yeah, there's spoilers involved in what he's trying to avoid saying there. So just go watch Bomb Squad.
But for real, I think my final is that I'd love for people to try this, or if they have, I'd love to hear how it went. Goods and bads, and
yeah. What about you, Levi? Any final remarks?
This is an interesting design space. If you do try it out, give your players lots of leeway, because they're not going to be sure what they're doing either.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's one of them things where it's going to be tough for that.
Yeah, but I think if you play it a little looser, you should all have a good time.
If you an easy way to try and keep it the way that they can better understand it is not to mess with the attributes at all. The scores, but change the way the scores are used. Like
yes,
and that might be an easier way to do it than to just say, okay, we're going to implement a whole new way to do social encounters. No.
Yes.
So.
No, actually, just a quick piggyback off that is too, it was one of the ideas behind this is to help everyone think outside the box with what you have. I just, for me as a narrator GM, I love doing that. Really, yeah, your mechanics say this. How can we flavor it that it does something? How much can we wring the towel out of this stat?
Yep. Okie dokie. Those are our final remarks. So, we hope you enjoyed sipping your preferred beverage while listening to us talk about different things regarding political encounters, political trials, a truly trying political debate. It's all three, trials, debates, all that type of stuff. So, as always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
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 This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
How to make chickens a viable PC?
We could do that. I'm just saying.
Totally do that.
Yeah. They have to, you could do a whole chicken run themed type of game.
Yes.
Escaping the chicken pen type of deal.
That would be good. World War II feel. Hogan's Heroes.
All right. See, so now we're getting closer to the type of game that would end up being ran if I was close enough to run the Open Legend game for the Avenue Studios crew that would fit with their original opening.
Right.
So, there you go.
That'd be fun. We just After Effects chicken heads on all of us for the intro.
Agent
Cluck. Oh, man. What was that one 90s cartoon where there's just that chicken in high school and nobody except like one person realized it was actually a giant rooster?
That's a skit from the Animaniacs variety show.
Is it Animaniacs? Yes. Oh my gosh, it just came to me. Yes.
So
classic.
Reminds me of Sir Barrington.
Sir Barrington Bear. All right.
Sweet.
Nightmare Lairs, the courtroom with 3 question marks.
More 3 question marks.
I know.
That's gonna be a thing now.
It's a trope. I am simplistic.
It's all right. If you do it enough times, it gets funny again.
Yeah. I just keep telling myself that. That was perfect timing between us.
Yeah, it was. Trial and error, experimentation. It's the only way to find out.
There it is. Trial and error.
Trial and error. All right.
Because this is a playtestable vibe. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Well done.
Triple entendres. That's how we roll around here.